This is a special multi-part series called Have Gi Will Travel, a philosophical journey. If you don't want to wait for new episodes to drop, you can listen to or watch this entire series as a supercut on Patreon or Ko-Fi. Part 8, Going Viral. Before the popularity of Facebook and Twitter, I relied on a personal blog to write about my adventures. I also frequently updated my Yelp account, writing slices of life as reviews of places I had visited. And it somehow went viral. I still get asked if I'm that guy from that trip. During my journey, I started saying, "Have Gi Will Travel," a play off of the old 1960s TV show, Have Gun Will Travel. Now it's a hashtag. People began to ask me to come visit them, so I did. There were even people online trying to guess where I might show up next. People even began offering me donations so that I could continue traveling and writing. This was all before GoFundMe and crowdsourcing. Strangers were invested in my trip, and some wanted me on the road indefinitely. Perhaps I was their escape. Part 9. Different Ships, Different Nights. My body still gets warm when I think of all the random acts of kindness and generosity I received. Strangers invited me into their homes, invited me to dinner, introduced me to their friends and family when they barely knew me. Perhaps they thought they knew me. People began to project their own ideas onto me and my journey. I became a proxy for the life they wanted to live. I didn't mind. Most of the time, their explanations were a lot cooler than mine. But my own explanation was, I didn't know. So I wanted to find out. I wanted to see what I could see. It's the big world, and the parts I had already lived could have taken place on a soundstage. I had no idea how people truly lived, what people somewhere else were doing. Do they exist in the same moment I exist? I wanted to find out. The more I observed, the more it became real. If a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? I wanted to find out. Not just abstractly, but to know it in my bones. I wanted to be in as many forests as I could and see and hear for myself, to be a witness. I used to suffer from loneliness. Even when people were around, I felt lonely. I don't feel that anymore. Even when I'm alone, I still feel connected. I no longer need to physically see people to know I'm not alone. Being lonely with others is when you believe you are in this alone, or that no one cares about you, neither of which is true. What I learned from all this is that the world is full of good people. It's a kinder place than we think. Yes, there are bad people and evil exists, but it's not as common as the good. In fact, the media can't report on all the good things. You can't say, nothing bad happened at this school today, or everything was good in this town today. It's too common, but bad things stand out, which is why it's reported. We think we know the world through media, but you don't really know until you get out there. And people are mostly good. And even if they're not, they want to be good. I feel like I'm proof of that. Most of the bad things in my life can't be blamed on people, even though I wish they could be. Most of the time, it was bad luck, bad timing, or circumstances beyond anyone's control. All the good things, however, were due to the deliberate actions of others. For this, I am grateful. There's a rich sadness in knowing most of the people I met in 2008. If we saw each other on the street, we wouldn't recognize each other. So much time has passed. And what we do remember are of our younger selves. A different look, a different role. Even if ships pass in the night again, It'll be different ships and a different night, never the same river twice. But I hope if we do see each other again, there'll be a spark of recognition where we'll simultaneously say, "You look familiar. Do I know you?" Part 10. The Turnaround. On a cold New York night, I came out of the subway terminal for Rockefeller Center and was greeted by bagpipe music. A parade. Bagpipes, kilts, uniforms, children, and people of importance. I don't know what the occasion was. To be frank, I wasn't even sure what day or month it was. I was out of it. Life was a blur. What I was doing was so incongruent from the way I used to live, my brain kept thinking I was dreaming. I was living a dream. Or was my past a dream? I was in conflict. Worlds were colliding. I walked for a while, and then I saw St. Patrick's Cathedral. For that moment, it was the most beautiful thing in my life. I went in and sat down. There was an event going on. There were families of organ donors who had passed away and the people whose lives were saved by them. When they all stood up, I saw the number of families affected, and it was quite moving. People coming together beyond race, creed, and beliefs for lives saved. I learned then, from suffering comes unity. I didn't know where I was or what I was doing. I knew where I was physically, but I didn't know where I was in existence. For that moment, I was lost. Or was I just lost in the moment? My soul was tired. I laid my head down on the pew. I thought about everything that led me there and why I took this trip. I wanted to be liberated. I thought if I had no attachments, I would finally be free. I then realized I had been free all along. The old Chinese curse, "May you live in interesting times," wasn't a curse at all. Not for me. To me, it's a blessing. I was free to make interesting choices, to make moments out of the ordinary. Then I woke up to find myself crying. Back then, I didn't know why, but I think I know now. I laid myself to rest at that church. All my old stories, who I thought I was supposed to be, it wasn't serving me. But I was fond of it, and I knew I couldn't go back to it. From now on, the people I knew would look different because I was different, and I could never see them the same way again. They would be the same. My city would be the same, but I wouldn't be. I was mourning the life I used to live because I couldn't pretend to be that person anymore. I didn't know how. In choosing to accept not knowing, I found peace. I got in my car and headed back to Los Angeles. If you don't want to wait for the next episode of Have Gi Will Travel, you can listen to or watch this entire series as a supercut on Patreon or Ko-Fi.